The views and opinions expressed by our host and guests are of their own opinion and experience and are not representative of their occupations, houses of worship, or any other intellectual property. Athens Avenue is not liable for its audience's adaptation of said experience over the next hour.
What is Athens Ave? Athens Ave is a hangout where the body of Christ can come and wrestle with our witness in the world that is becoming increasingly intolerant to our presence, to our position, and most of all, the praise to our God. What is Athens Ave? It's where we give a biblical worldview on life and ministry and seek to courageously respond to it as it's happening. You never know who you might see on Athens Ave. On Athens Ave, you're going to hear gossip in the pew. You're going to hear a fight on in this corner. And on Athens Ave, we'll provide wisdom from the men of Issachar. It's always going down on Athens Ave. Make sure you make a right on Athens Ave. We are back. How you doing, Dr. L.A.?
Good. I'm good. I'm ready for episode 3. How we doing?
You're ready for episode 3. I'm ready for episode 3 as well. But I do want to say congratulations. It's more like a belated congratulations. But Pastor's Appreciation Month was last month. So all of you guys were celebrating. And now I also know, I'm sure our viewers know, but you celebrated 20 years pastoral anniversary. So shout out to that. You guys are killing it. Yeah. Hey, this is my absolute favorite segment.
I've got something to tell you. I've got some news in the pew.
This one should be fun.
Oh,
So y'all told me, I didn't know what to do. I figured we needed some comic relief. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to pick this and I'm going to ask how many of you guys have seen, number one, dancing at a funeral? I've not seen, and maybe it's happened before and I just haven't been to that funeral. But would you allow this at a funeral you are doing?
Well, I have not seen dancing at a funeral. If that's what that was. Yeah, that was that but that was something. I don't know if I can say I would not allow, because normally when I'm doing a funeral, I'm normally I try to cater as much to the family's desire as possible.
Understood.
And so, there's no way I would know that they would be doing backhand semis, trying to, do their interpretive,
Right.
Yeah, just bring them cats in.
I
I know
figured I'd
Candy
change
already
it
don't
up a
even
little
he
bit.
don't like the mom in the praise dance. So he ain't a fan of none of that anyway. So I know from the
Oh,
door.
who's not?
Canty's not.
Well, let me
Really?
clarify.
Clarify,
My
go ahead.
wife used to do sign language to gospel music, and I knew she put a lot into it. But it was for a time, and that those I can enjoy. And I see those, and I don't have an issue with dancing in church. I used to have an issue with dancing in church. And I think it was just more of a cultural reason. I wouldn't say it's a biblical reason, but it was just a preference. But at a funeral, backflips, really? That's what we're doing? Backflips at a funeral. A grown man and a church aisle doing backflips at a funeral. I felt for him. And that's out of pocket. I'm sorry, that's just out of pocket. and we doing too much. It's too much. It's too much. Go ahead, RDub.
I just wanted to know. Come on, RDub. I mean, because I wanted RDub's opinion really to figure out,
Next we're gonna be
because
breakdancing.
that
Next we're
wisdom.
gonna be breakdancing at funerals.
But the
Pop lock.
the artist didn't his dancing didn't match the songs and the lyrics of the song. So I'm sitting up there saying, what does this backflip got to do with the song? And I just jumped when I saw him crash. I said, whoa.
Yeah. Y'all
That
saw
caught
all
me
of
off
y'all
guard.
backstage.
I think we go too far. I think that somebody should have went to practice first to see if it would work.
The distance.
Yeah, the distance. You got to do
You
that.
got to measure that out.
Like that's foolishness. So I'm glad that we were all in agreement. I just figured that would be some comedic relief. I was like,
it was
this
absolutely
is a bunch of mess. Okay.
Are you weary and well-doing? Then you need some fuel. My name is Pastor Paul James, and I'd like to invite you to the 2024 Fuel Conference. This year's conference happens on a Saturday morning on November 16th from 8:30 a.m. to 12:30. It'll be at Ezekiel Baptist Church at 5701 Grays Avenue in Philadelphia. And this year we're going to do something a little bit different. Rather than having lectures or sermons, we're going to have a series of TED Talk style charges that are designed to take you closer to this year's theme, which is encountering God. That is, we're going to devote time to prayer rather than just speaking. In these difficult times that are divisive, it is so very important that we learn to encounter God. So to Philadelphia, New Jersey, Delaware, and the greater Delaware Valley, let's come together to fuel up so that we can encounter God together.
So is it fair to the congregation to allow preachers who cannot preach to preach?
In this corner.
Whoa. Whoa.
All right. You go ahead, man. You start this one.
On the side of compassion and consideration, my pastor told me the way you learn to preach is through preaching. And you have to preach to learn the art of preaching and things of that nature. And I think if we can be patient and considerate with singers who can't sing until they can sing better, I think we should be just as patient and considerate with the preacher who's learning the craft and learning the art of preaching. I think we should show just as much grace as we show to everyone else.
Okay. I mean, I guess when I look at this question first, it's the cannot preach part.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean? Because I think that's subjective, right? To someone's personal opinion. You can have guys who preach for 20 years, and someone can say you can't preach. I know
you're a good teacher. You're a good teacher.
Yeah. My wife's grandma, God rest her soul. She had a pastor that shouted and hooped, and he had people even come down and put on his robe like he was James Brown. But his exegesis was very questionable. At best, for some, it was entertainment, as opposed to edification or education, and it wasn't anything that could have helped with their maturation. You know what I mean? And so I'm sitting there looking at that and like, what is this? And that's what she grew up on. That was her thing.
Right. Mm-hmm.
When she came and heard me preach, she wanted to know after I got finished preaching, when was I going to start preaching? Right. Her, just expounding the word of God and explaining it to her and applying it for her. And like, that wasn't preaching,
right.
Because I had yet to yell or holler or hoop. And so she was waiting on a big finish. And so in her mind, that's why I say it's subjective. What is good preaching? You know what I mean? I've also heard so many young pastors as a professor. I've heard so many young preachers share how their pastor told them that they would not be able to preach at their church because they weren't ready for the stage. They told them that your gifts will make way for you. That don't mean it's my job to make way for you. And so for them, it was, go look for opportunities to preach, but it won't be here at our home church and our pulpit.
Well, I understand that, and I guess that word "cannot" is that compound there that's the hang up. But I'm looking at it as a novice just getting in, being patient with. But then there are some preachers that people will say, "Oh, he preached," as you said, and somebody else will say of that same preacher, "Oh, he didn't preach. I didn't get anything from it." And I think it is subjective enough, but I'm looking at it from the infancy stage where a person's coming in. So if I were to look at it, because I'm not going to mention where it happened, but I heard a preacher, in the African-American culture, we come up with some interesting titles when we're preaching. We do. I remember one preacher, he preached a sermon. It was a good sermon. And the titles what stuck with me, Empire Strikes Back. And they have to talk about heaven coming. But then I said, and you can kind of make that correlation, talk about how Jesus, we can see that. But I heard another preacher preach, and my pastor didn't appreciate, he's a doctor and everything. The title of his sermon was called Catman Religion, right? And the preachers who were seminary trained that was cat-minded indeed. Cat-minded. It was nothing to it. It was a time when I'm talking in this church, Concord, you have folks shouting because of the word. These people are studious. I don't think one person complimented the sermon because I think everybody was there saying that was not preaching. We don't know what that was. And what I'm saying is, I think we should be considerate and compassionate. You don't know what a person is. And there are times when you and I can admit there are days when we have bad sermons, but we have God's results coming out of the bad sermon. We understand that. And sometimes when we think a sermon is good and we ain't got nothing coming, and then we're trying to figure out what's wrong with the people. But I think we need to be considerate and compassionate and allow a person to grow in that craft and in that art, just as we allow everybody else to grow.
And I agree. I mean, I agree with the fact that preachers need discipleship too, right. and a church need to be open to them growing. And I agree. You only get good at communicating God's word by communicating God's word. So I definitely, agree with that. But I believe there is a responsibility that as a senior pastor, that, when we say can't preach, like I'm going to look at your message and help with your message. So now you may have an issue with the delivery of that message, but the sermon itself and the content of that is going to run through a filter to make sure that is able to hold up and edify the people that's there, right? So for me, it's not just about putting you up there and letting you go, like I'm putting you on a bike and not giving you the training wheels and the support or holding the back of that while you ride along until I can let go and you can handle that thing on your own.
Right.
So I think there's something about, becoming a good preacher by making sure that we are giving you as much as we possibly can to equip you for success. But like I said, it was the good preacher thing of, because everybody's subjective of what they feel, if it doesn't alliterate, if it doesn't start or end with a story, if you don't drop a song in the middle of that, if you don't raise your voice and my organist is not on key. So everybody got the idea of what is good, and so I think that's subjective to me is what is the content being made? Did you do good justice in your exegesis and communicating what the passage was, and that's where, did I leave talking more about you or more about the God that you were supposed to be referring to? Did I learn more about the context of that passage that is based in, as well as who was speaking, who were they speaking to, and what was the point of that? and then I walk away with the application of that, to me, all of those components make up a good message. Now, so if we understand what a good message is content wise, we won't get so caught up on what the title of was it, or what was the alliteration and the construction of it, as much as, wow, I've seen something in God's word, the Holy Spirit worked. And so that was a good message,
right?
That was preached, as opposed to what is a good preacher.
Preaching, right?
You know what I mean?
I understand that. So if you and I were to be, as pastors, we have to take the responsibility as stewards of that pulpit that, bro, you're not ready. Your sermon's not tight. We're not going to negatively affect this congregation with your sermon,
or you for that
yeah,
matter.
Really,
like I want to set you up for success, right? So I don't want to set you up for failure. So it helps that whoever that preacher is, they got a teachable spirit,
right?
Where you can give instruction and advice and say, hey, let me see that. No, you might not be ready, or whatever the case may be, because I want you to actually do well, right?
For the kingdom, right?
Absolutely.
Because congregation can be hard on the preacher when they feel that the preaching wasn't there. And with this day and age, you'll never know if it's going to be in the pew.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they're comparing them to you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then that could be an issue too. Like if I'm comparing whether or not you're a good preacher compared to who I'm used to hearing,
right?
Who've been doing it for 20 years and doing it 3 out of 4 Sundays, then they throw you up. You know what I mean? I shouldn't have to compare that to. I should be able to appreciate you for who you are. And that's up to us to create those kind of cultures, you know. And again, so you got to have a pastor who cares about it and don't see them as a potential threat.
Right.
Don't see them, don't have no jealousy there. You know what I mean? Don't have no insecurity there.
The only time you put him up because you're going to do bad.
Yeah,
so
man.
Good.
Yeah. So it's so much there. We could go with that.
I know that's right.
Yeah.
Please don't put the guy up because y'all don't want to look bad. Oh my goodness. So what you got to say about this, PK?
I think the thing that struck me about the definition, I think it was mentioned, the definition. What is the definition of cannot preach? And that was one thing that kind of stuck out to me. And I thought it was like, I don't know that fair is necessarily the word. I don't think it's fair to have a preacher put a preacher in front of a congregation who is focused on self, is focused on entertainment, is focused on getting an amen, and not preaching the word. I think when we think about what the church can be, and we think about the whole concept of leadership development and discipleship, you're not going to get good unless you do it. It was good points on both sides.
The nuance of the actual question.
Yeah.
I don't know if we actually was disagreeing, but the approach to how to see that come to fruition, and I think those kind of things is what we have to work with.
So we're going to go to a commercial break, guys. I mean, look, and if your preacher can't preach, maybe Dr. LA and Pastor RDub can help them out.
I've revealed some things and shared some things in us, and really some blind spots that we have when it comes to covering our life and ministry. It's easy to say during your first ministry, it's a whole lot harder to actually do and function in that space. I don't think you can lead a healthy church if you don't have a healthy marriage and a healthy home. What you have is some heartfelt words and stories and transparency that I hope you can appreciate and benefit from and share with others. It starts with us being transparent, revealing where we are and where we come up short, and working on that together so that we can be a better blessing to the church.
All right, we are back. Okay. And this is absolutely this is my favorite segment. So I'm just gonna bring in PK. Let's just get this going.
Men of Issachar.
How much is too much when it comes to Christian transparency?
What I think it's referring to, it
Okay.
seems to be a preacher-centered, or maybe even maybe it might be small groups where someone discloses some information that's just too much. We didn't need to know about all that. We didn't even know what your husband said, what your wife said. You know, some of the stuff that happened in quote unquote a bedroom, or maybe it's just something else. You know,
Okay.
too much information, I believe, is where we're going.
Okay.
I wonder sometimes when I read this question, I wonder sometimes, in the age of social media, Instagram postables and Facebook and just social media, where the whole shock factor is something that we crave for, and kind of almost in the name of keeping it real, people just disclose too much. Like I really didn't need to know that. I really didn't need to. We didn't need to know that. It didn't really help. So I believe that that's the case.
Okay. I guess I was on the other side of that. I think, you know, transparency, I think, is needed. I think, you know, and in the world that we live in, you know, keep it a bean, keep it a buck, you know, 100, you know, everybody want to keep it real. I think it, you know, transparency, it demonstrates a level of authenticity. I think it helps to build trust. When you're transparent, I think it helps others to open up, allow them to be themselves and to be transparent as well. I think when people know you're willing to be vulnerable and disclose something of yourself to them, then they tend to be willing to disclose something of themselves to you. Because I think, you know, honestly, we got to get past the blessed by the best, sanctified, you know, how you doing? Oh, I'm, you know, and we give these answers and these platitudes that everything is great, even when it's not. So I think, you know, when I look at like James, and he talks about, you know, that we are to confess our sins to one another. You know what I mean? So I think there's some value in that. I mean, I understand what you mean by TMI and just going too far and saying too much. But I think, you know, I mean, I don't know where they're going with the question, but I think the idea of transparency, I don't know how you can have authentic relationship without transparency.
So if I want to, if I feel like cussing somebody out, and I do it, is that being? Have I gone to the point of being too transparent? I think that's. I'm wondering if that's what the question. What's behind the question is? Is there no filter? Like, do we not utilize a filter as believers when we communicate? For example, like if we're having Bible study or small group, or we're just fellowshipping, and there's a new believer among us, a weaker brother, do I have a responsibility as a mature Christian to filter some of what I might want to say that I would probably normally say around some other mature believers? Do I filter or hold back the transparency? Do I disclose everything to that new believer, or do I give them a chance to kind of get their feet wet and become familiar, to learn that it's okay later on? Like, yo, at a certain point in maturity, we confess our faults one to another, and I share some really deep stuff with a brother, or within a context that it could be edifying. Because not let everything be done for edification. Like, if my motive is to seem super authentic and down, and I say something that it's like, that's really not the moment or place.
Okay,
it's good, but it's just not the moment or place.
And I get that. I think being transparent to, you know, it takes wisdom and transparency. You know what I mean? Discernment. So I get that. Like, you know, because we all know that we can reveal something and it can and will possibly be used against you at another time. You know what I mean? So with transparency can come judgment, you know, but I mean, but when I think about the transparency in authentic relationship, authentic community, it could also bring forth like freedom. You know what I mean? From that, you know, your ability to have to fight something alone, you know what I mean? You have that, you know, but you know, I've seen what you speak of. Sometimes your transparency, you know, so much about yourself, you know what I mean, versus even your God, that people leave talking about, oh, wow, you, as
Exactly.
opposed to your guy, right? So to me, I think if we're talking about the pulpit, I think there needs to be some level of boundary to use wisdom and how much you can share, because you want to protect the flock, you know what I mean, from falling and from falling away. So I think it's important how transparent you are there. I think in small group, in a private place, you know what I mean, where you can hold one another accountable to living out this Christian life, then I think there's another level of freedom that you can have. So I think, the question, again, it doesn't say from the pulpit, from pastors, from believers and small, so it doesn't define the context where you're being transparent. But I think no matter what, it always comes with a level of wisdom. You know what I mean? And how transparent are we? Because I think what you said is so critical. The shock factor, is out there. And I think sometimes, if I know and I'm gonna say something and it could go viral, I might be willing to say it just so it could go viral.
Yeah.
As opposed to it being any other benefit to what it is that are coming out of my mouth.
Yeah, no, I think you hit it on the nail. I think our transparency as individuals, and I when I was thinking about this question, I was thinking about in the scriptures, you have people's lives laid bare.
Mm-hmm.
You got 2 Samuel 11, David, his sin with Bathsheba, laid bare. I mean, the Bible has this element of transparency throughout it. Like everybody's stuff is laid bare, but then you have something redemptive in Psalm 51, where David gives a context. He gives God's perspective on his sin, and an element of grace is attached to it. So it's like there's this redemptive element that's matched up with I messed up. And I think those are good. Like, yeah, those help you to grow. Those help. Those two, that incident, 2 Samuel 11, Psalm 51 has helped many of us grow, in the Lord. And when David was being so, I believe he was being so transparent in Psalm 51 and in other places, we benefit from that.
Right.
We benefit from that. And so I just think it's a good thing. So yeah, no, it's
well, here's the thing, when you think about Psalm 51, if you knew about David's affair and he come out with, Lord, against you, and you only have our son that done was evil in your sight, you know what I mean? And he come with Psalm 51 and he was your pastor. Seriously, like, how would you respond to that? Like, yeah, we looking at David, thousands, like, hey, thanks for your transparency. But if your pastor get up and make that bold confession of having a falling moment such as that, and he has confessed that to the Lord, is he forgiven on Sunday?
I don't know if he forgiven, but that's probably his last time preaching.
That's what I'm saying. He's not
that's
forgiven.
probably his last time preaching.
So having discernment and wisdom and knowing when and who to and how to, you know what I mean? Yeah.
No,
the church is willing to forgive everybody but the pastor. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
That's cold. That the church is willing to forgive everybody but the pastor. But that's very real. Sorry to interrupt that statement, but that's like, that's crazy. Because they wouldn't be forgiven.
Yeah, but that's why your pastor will hide more than anybody else, because
than anybody else, of course,
because he don't feel he has the same grace or forgiveness that anybody else would have.
The only thing I was going to say, in the words of the late Louis Patterson, confession is good for the soul, but it's bad for the reputation.
Absolutely.
And you gotta have a safe environment that fosters a certain level of your transparency.
I agree with that.
Yeah, because I think you can go too far.
Absolutely,
you can go too far because everybody's not mature enough to handle it.
We are now going to head over to our next segment, our newest segment. It's been catching traction. We've been hearing about it. We Got Next has been absolutely amazing. So here is it is really good. Here's We Got Next. You already know why I'm here. This is my absolute favorite segment. They stole my hearts last week, so I hope they stole yours as well. The millennials are speaking.
We back. What's up, y'all?
I don't know if I should be or not, but I feel like because I'm a part of this that I'm offended. Okay, so let's just talk. Let's just put the topic up. Why do boomers and Gen Xers feel like they need to correct us all the time, especially in the church?
I'm going to just put it out there. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that they were corrected so often. Like they were brought up in this need of being correct or being corrected and always having to be right. So I think that's one of the reasons why. And then especially in the church, they feel like they own it. Like they feel like this their space, this my church. I've been here for 35, 45, 65. I was here for family member. Like, all right, cool, that's fine. But they also don't want to get with the times. Like things are changing and they're correcting us because they don't like how it's changing and they want it back to how they've had it. But I'm gonna just sit back real quick because I'm gonna get on the soapbox.
I just think it's tradition, I mean, kind of like you said, but I mean, just so many years of just doing one thing, and knowing something to be one way. I mean, the world, I don't know how fast, those generations thought the world was changing when it was changing. But I mean, I feel like just in the last, or at least part of my lifetime, I feel like it's been changing super quick. Like even like over the last 5 years, I feel like it's something completely new, not even just like a small shift. Like I feel like, people and just the way times are changing is super new. So, I mean, I would assume it'd be difficult for them too, but you gotta change.
What do y'all feel like they be correcting you on? I don't know if I find correction as a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like correction brings forth wisdom. So I don't struggle with being corrected. I actually kind of look for it. I wonder if we will be receptive to correction, if we are receptive to correction based upon how it's presented. And I think that we live in a time where people can't be offended. And if people are offended, we try to change everything. And sometimes I feel like it's okay for you to be offended. Like, I think that millennials respectfully need to do their push-ups. Like, there's a lot of growing up that's necessary. But I do think that sometimes you don't know how to speak to people, kind of like what we were talking about last week. So I that's why I was asking, like, what do you think the correction is, or that's bothering us, or like, and is there a type of way that you would like to be corrected? Because I don't think that I will be as successful as I was if I wasn't getting correction.
It's not what you say, it's how you say it. If you ask me, right? So just like you were saying, it's how it's being brought to me. Because I'm pretty good with correction too. Like you said, I kind of need it. It keeps me going forward. It keeps me from doing something probably dumb. But watch how you talk to me, because again, I'm not a child. So you can correct me, but respectfully, because when it becomes disrespectful, I start to listen more towards the tone as opposed to the message. And I think that's where the issue is if we have to, again, change that level.
I think we're all adults, right? But we're still not on the same level because we're adults now. You know what I mean? Like, there is still a lot that we have growing up to do the same way they do, respectfully. You know what I mean? And I think that sometimes we got to get better at separating the meat from the bone, right? Like, I think we too sensitive, fam. Like, I really think millennials sometimes is low-key soft. Like, you can't be that offended all the time with all that mouth, right? Like, if the person who is correcting you, don't have any ill intent, their tone might flicker the same way your tone might flicker because we're passionate. But I'm not coming for you. And I think that we have to learn how to discern when a person is coming for you and try to beat you down with the Bible, and when a person they talking hard. And that doesn't mean talking hard is okay, but that also means that you can't be offended every 5 seconds.
I mean, I would say that I'm a pretty strong person too, in a way of like, I mean, this could be a flaw, but I really don't even listen when people give me advice or try to correct me anyway. but there are a lot of sensitive people though, to whereas, you know, if you like, even if somebody that accepts correction, I think when it comes to a church setting, some people just might want it to, or expect it to be presented, you know, in a much, you know, softer way. So whereas, you know, you might find somebody who's just new to the church or whatever it is, and, you know, you got somebody trying to tell them about, you know, I guess the expectation of the church and how you're supposed to be, or, you know, certain things. And it's like, yo, I don't need all that right now. You know, for us, we cool, right? Maybe. But, you know, for somebody else, like, that could easily discourage them to just walk away from the church as a whole.
Very true. Very
like
true.
Somebody come in for the first time and, you know, you receive that some way. It's like, oh, nah, like, this God thing ain't going to be for me, or this church thing ain't going to be for me. Like, if you run into that, you know, one experience.
That's real. Because I do think that people need to learn how to read the room, right? Like there's a time and a place for stuff, and there's a way about doing things. So I totally, especially when we're talking about like new believers or folks who are new to the church, I think that there's a way to speak to people that doesn't run them off. And I think like ultimately, people have to get back to doing things in love, right? You can correct a person in love, regardless if you're being stern and direct, or regardless if you are like coaching them through this very softly. At the end of the day, I think that people as a whole need to do a better at doing things in love. When we talk about like boomers and Gen Xers and they wanting to correct us, I think we have to understand that correction takes place in the form of a communication and a conversation. And we both got to just do better at communicating.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, though, sometimes that it could turn into nitpicky too? Like, I think that another thing when it comes to correction might also be slightly fear. Darius mentioned tradition. When nowadays tradition is not the same, right? People coming into the church are not the same. So whereas in the regular world, like, just a controversial idea, a miniskirt, right? A comment to say, hey, you know, maybe you shouldn't wear that in church because it's not necessarily appropriate, right? But in today's society, a miniskirt is a miniskirt. You're not supposed to talk to someone or a woman about what she's wearing, you know? So do you think that in the midst of tradition, boomers and Gen Xers can find themselves to be a bit nitpicky, trying to stay with the tradition, or running away from the fear of change?
So I'm a geriatric millennial. I'm a geriatric. I think that because something is changing doesn't mean that it's correct. So like to your example about this mini skirt, I don't think that we should be living in a world where you can't correct a person on what they have on. If it's inappropriate, it's inappropriate. And that's not me not liking women. That's not me bashing people. It's not all this hoopla that people make it. Your skirt is inappropriate and somebody needs to teach you how to do better. Like, I think that what we have at stake here is allowing people to live wrong and thinking they're living right. So are you going to keep information from people that's supposed to help them grow? Like, even the Bible says, like, we are struggling because of lack of knowledge, right? So you're going to keep them without this knowledge that you got because you don't want to offend them?
So like, you know, somebody walk in with that or whatever, you know, whether it's a miniskirt or whether it's, I don't know, what will be the opposite of like a guy wearing something?
Maybe his pants behind.
Yeah, you know, say they come in on day one, you know, and they're engaged and everything, and it's like, okay, you want them to come back. If you say that on day one, I might not slide back.
Yeah,
I think you have to have relational equity. To your point, D. Like, I don't think that somebody who don't know you can come up and just say anything to you, right? I do think that you have to build rapport with people to be able to correct them to an extent. And to the extent that I'm willing to hear them, it's going to be based upon my trust that they're not judging me, but that they have my best interest at heart.
Like you said, D, like, you can't just because you see it this morning, you can't just run up to the first person you see and, oh, baby girl, that shirt, that skirt, baby girl, you can't wear that. You, hey, how you doing today? And then next week you come back and I see, okay, listen, mamas, it's been a month now. It's nice seeing you, baby. I don't want to see your kneecaps. I don't want to see your kneecaps. Let's put on a little something. So I think it's the tone, it's the timing, and I'm with you. I agree. Correction is necessary, but still watch your mouth.
As a Gen Xer, okay. Thank you so much for letting me in your circle. I heard what you said, Allie. You said it's about your tone and kind of watch your mouth. So there's a difference between respect and like correction, because sometimes my correction doesn't mean that I don't respect you. It's just what is right, or what we are. I don't want to say what's right, because then we'll get into a whole nother conversation, but what is appropriate is just appropriate. So even if you feel like, okay, watch your mouth, you may feel that even if I come to you, to Janae's point with that relational equity, and to Dee's point with that impeccable timing, you may still feel away, because I believe that as millennials, you guys just feel away. Darius said that, I think, last episode, or even, I don't know if you said it this episode, or if it was last week, but it was just like, I don't need all that. So how in the world do we approach you? But what I don't want you to do is come to church after being spiritually mature in your bodysuit, and then expect Darius and all the other guys to like look away.
I think Janae made the best point of like, you just gotta, like, it takes time. You gotta build that relationship, because somebody's only going to respect your opinion or even be willing to listen to your opinion if y'all done built some type of rapport.
This was absolutely amazing. I can't wait to hear what the fellas are gonna say. I'm telling you right now, this is about to be this one right here, because you know they boomers. So listen, this was another great time with our millennials on We Got Next, and we will see you guys next week. Peace.
Bye.
I would be one of those who fall in what they call Gen X.
Oh, you're Gen X too? Okay, I just thought y'all were all older, right?
Well, what I did appreciate that, there was some openness to correction. There are some who will judge the next generation based on tradition. But one of the things, I think the miniskirt example was a good example. I mean, the Bible clearly talks about older women addressing the younger women, teaching them how to dress modest and that sort of thing. Just like the older men are meant to disciple the younger men. So it's really our job as mature Christians to help train and disciple younger Christians. It's our job to correct them. But they kept talking about, come to me correct, like respect me when you do it. So yeah, there's also a speaking the truth in love that needs to be present. I know it helps to have relationship with somebody before you just say something to them. As I think it was brought out. If it's my first day in the church, and you come up to me like, yo, pull your pants up, take your hat off, whatever the case may be, like, yeah, I'm not going to be so open and receptive to you who I don't know coming up to me. If I'm here and I'm visiting and I'm like this, you should be able to read the room, know that I'm unchurched. You should be excited that I done came in your building, no matter I got a hat on or pants down or whatever else. You should be excited that I'm here. And the more unchurched I look, the more excited you should get that I walked in here. Now worry about me if I stay the same way that I walked in 10 years from now. Well, yeah, we got a problem. You ain't did nothing. But if you come in at me after 10 minutes, we got a problem. I think the church need to understand that. You can't say you're here to reach the lost, and then because the lost come in looking lost, talking lost, and acting lost, then you got a problem. You know what I mean? Because you're the one who's been called to go get them, go find them. And now that they show up, the Lord brings them to your doorstep and in your building, you got a nerve to turn your face up and make them feel marginalized and ostracized because they don't fit into your culture that they just walked in on. Yeah, I got a problem with too. So I agree with them on much of that aspect of it. The only point I have is that they too need to be open. Like the church itself need to be open to learn. They too need to know when I come in, I need to be open to learn as well.
I think it's not only perspective, but it's the journey, because I think the boomers and before did a lot of things. Sad to say it, they were driven by survivor mode and the rough terrain that they were going in. I think a lot of boomers are looking, say, hey, we don't want you to have to go through what we went through. We want you to be on our shoulders, but we want you to respect that we do have something to offer. But at the same time, I think the boomers have to respect that that generation also has something to learn and as well as to offer. Everybody can't be communicated to the same way. I think boomers have to understand that their language and my language are not the same. Perception is not the same. And I think as boomers, you got to be very sensitive to that.
I think that relationships are extremely important, and the development of relationships. And I don't want to dismiss that, some from the current young generation, they want to be talked to a certain way. They want to be approached a certain way. And in one sense, I got to respect that. I'm learning as a parent to approach my the young people in my house. I remember how I grew up and how I was talked to. And now I'm, and I remember not liking it. I remember not liking it. And so I try to, I want to empathize with them, put myself in their shoes. But I will say this. I think sometimes with the current generation, they want you to literally sacrifice blood sacrifices in order to get an opportunity and access to share with them something that they need to correct or do better. And I hear a lot of that in church.
That is deep.
I hear that a lot, that, oh, you need to do first before you die. You got to do all this stuff first before. So I put it all on the table. We need to talk to younger people right. We can't just, pull age on everybody. And I understand it. They want to be respected, and I want to respect them. But at the same time, I want to encourage that generation. Man, if an older person is willing to drop some knowledge on you, please take it.
First, we're going to go ahead and go to a commercial break. And when we come back, we are going to be immediately catapulted into my favorite segment, On the Spot. We'll see you when we get back. Hold up. Now, wait a minute, guys. You know good and well that I'm not going to leave you. This is your girl, Mama Spitfire, a.k.a. Faith Stalker, a.k.a. Pastor Sone. I'm on the microphone. Yes, you can expect so many new things from our second season of Faith Stalking. We're going to be talking about trust. We're going to be talking about current events. We're going to be talking about marriages. We're going to be talking about relationships, friendships, your job. You may get some special guests, and I may even drop a bar or 16. Know what I mean? I'll see you soon. Peace. Hi, Dr. LA.
Hi.
I know. I'm always like a kid, like, hi, how are you? Right. Oh my goodness. This season, you got a good season going on, sir. I just want to let you know.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Yes, we got a good season going on. Yeah. I know, but this is my favorite segment, everyone. This is On the Spot. And I'm just going to go ahead and read the bio. Pastor Rob Whitmire is the servant pastor of Grace and Peace Community Fellowship, located in the Hunting Park section of North Philadelphia. He went to Kutztown University as an accounting major. Shout out to the accountants. That's what my major is. And he also played collegiate football. Okay. While at Kutztown, Pastor Whitmire felt the divine call of the Lord on his life to pursue biblical studies. All throughout Pastor W's journey, yes, I gave him a nickname, he attended Spirit and Truth Fellowship in North Philadelphia, again, where he was mentored closely by the late Dr. Manny Ortiz. We love Dr. Ortiz here. In 2011, he was ordained by the Christian Reformed Church. Then in June of 2012, he graduated from Biblical Theological Seminary with his MDiv degree. Pastor Whitmire is currently the executive director of Timoteo Sports, which is a youth mentoring organization and ministry in the city of Philadelphia that uses sports as a vehicle to reach and mentor young people. I think that is absolutely amazing. And last but never least, Pastor Rob has been blessed with his lovely wife, Malika, and 2 children, James and Maya. I'm going to present to some and introduce to others, none other than Pastor Rob Whitmire. Hi.
So how you doing, my friend?
I'm good.
It's good to see you, man. It's good to see you. Welcome to On the Spot. You know, On the Spot is where we bring those who are Christians, but who serve in big ways outside of the doors of the church, and you are doing that. I want to jump right into Timoteo and, you know, what you do there. And, you know, after you say what you do there, we're going to talk about why you do it.
Timoteo Sports, man, we've been around. It's been around for 19 years. Crazy.
Wow. Right.
That was birthed out of
Wow.
North Philly. Birthed out of 2 churches who had a desire just to reach young people. And the idea was that how do you keep young guys close to the church? They would come to youth group, but they couldn't keep them. So they just kind of sparked this flag football because the kids are playing in the streets. And from that point, just kind of seeing 2 churches, kind of say my church against your church. And then it grew to 4 churches, 6 churches. So back in 2005, this was launched by brother Bill Campbell and Nessa Espinosa, biblical grads as well, who really had a heart for this. And yeah, they were serving probably 30 to 60 kids at that time. Fast forward to 2024, we're serving over 700 young people in the city of Philly.
Wow.
Yeah, we kind of use this hook of Timoteo uses sports as a hook to engage and to engage and impact the lives of young people in a holistic way. They're not necessarily running to mentoring or tutoring or spiritual development. So you got to use what the hook is for right now, right? Just to kind of get them in the doors to be able to spill more of these things into their lives.
So yeah, man, I remember, you know, my son and our church being a part of it. And I remember my oldest boy who'd be 32 to you know, and wow. And he was playing, you know, flag football. With that, I remember them having to remember Bible verses as a team in order to play, that sort of thing. So I know you were injecting some word in there, some mentoring in there in that process. And I mean, you're already a busy guy with family and with church and everything else. Why do you do it?
Yeah, I think for me, on a couple of different levels. I mean, sports has always been a part of my life. And I think in the midst of being in sports, I felt like that was a piece of where the Lord saved me. Just because I encountered someone who was walking with the Lord while I was playing high school ball. And I think that is always kind of just going to gravitate me towards the sports side. But then I think the other side is just being an urban kid. And how are we giving our urban young, you know, Black and brown young men and now women as well? How are we kind of giving them another platform in order to see God's movement, right, within the city? A lot of our kids seem to always tend to reach for sports, technology, or music as the get out, right? How do we get out? And I'm trying to, and I'm praying that my staff and the rest of us are kind of helping change the narrative, because we don't necessarily want our kids to use these things in order to get out of the hood, but we want them to get what they can out of it, maybe step out of the hood for a minute to come back to transform the hood.
Okay.
So I love that.
That's really why we're doing what we do.
Now, I know you mentioned girls as well now, because it started off as all boys, right? And it started off as just flag football. And now tell me, what is it now?
Yeah, now we changed it to Timoteo Sports because now we're doing multiple sports.
Okay.
So we have flag football, we have basketball, and we have volleyball now. And so Timoteo, just to kind of give another quick background, Timoteo is Spanish for Timothy. So it really derives from this whole idea of 2 Timothy 2:1. And we took that for years and we realized, okay, this is great. We're pouring into young men. But then what's happening is on the sidelines, you got all their girlfriends and their sisters and their cousins. And the ladies are raising their hand like, well, what's for us? So
I love it.
It's like, how are we transforming not just young men, but understand we need to change a whole population of young
the
people.
whole narrative of yes.
Yeah. So
Love
we
it.
just launched our new brand. Our new brand is the Ruth Sports.
Okay.
Oh, okay, Roof Sports.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we just launched Roof Sports, and the idea is that we're trying to find some older Naomis to pour into these young ladies.
Dope.
I love that. I love that.
Now I know you have said your why was because of how it helped you. But I also know, just because of my intimate knowledge, that you guys have experienced some level of tragedy and players who've been there, that sort of thing. Talk about that.
It's funny. I just had a meeting today, and we were just talking about that. We average probably losing 2 players a year. At least 2 players a year, and that's some current players or just some who just aged out. And I think
when you say losing,
I was like,
like pass away from gun violence, from tragic pieces of just the violence of the city. We are based out of Kensington, so we realize, right, everything is running away from those areas. Everything is running away from North Philly. Hunting Park is really creeping into that space even more now, and we're seeing it. So we're saying, how do we not run away from it, but run to it? Just because we know that, who is our help, right? This idea that we have Christ as our help. So we need to go directly in. And in the midst of that, just realizing, like, we just lost a young man last year to gun violence that, he just was into some things, his coaches were trying to encourage him not to. And one day he's standing on the block and someone comes down the block and shoots him and his friend in the head. That's our reality. Is everyone's talking about, oh, you need to get kids off the street. And I think that was for a time of our generation, because we were in the street, we were playing ball, we were on the corners, we were in that place. But kids are not on the block like they used to be. Kids are not playing in the street like they used to be. Kids are actually inside on technology, gearing up for what they're about to do, and then they go out and do it. So I actually said this to City Hall folks. I said, listen, honestly, we need to stop saying we need to get kids off the street and put a comma on that thing and give them something constructive to do.
Absolutely. I know about the tragedy. Tell me about one of your hero stories. Tell me about one of the favorite moments you have since you've been involved.
Yeah, I think so, man. A lot of my hero stories now is just seeing these young kids make it. And when I say make it, is seeing these kids graduate, right? Seeing these kids walk across the aisle, and then not just walk across the aisle, but actually get into schools. We've over the past 2 years just seeing some of our graduates go to different colleges, go to Eastern University, go to Lancaster Bible College, go to Williamson College of Trade. And then now seeing one of our guys, man, who was an alumni and he was a coach. Now we have a crazy partnership with Pico, and Pico is hiring my kids at an unreal rate.
Wow, that's awesome.
So they're going in as an apprentice program and now becoming linemen, right? These guys who are up in the sky, hanging lines, and these kids are making more than their parents ever made. But I think it's the idea of not the financial reward, but the fact of them seeing, like,
productive life.
I can actually do something too.
You can make it. Yeah, I love it.
It doesn't have to be the same storyline as my neighborhood. So
absolutely. Well, kudos to you, man, and kudos to the league and Timothy Hill and Roof now, handling the boys and the girls and keeping them on the street and doing something constructive. I want to switch gears, man, and I want to talk about this Ertz Foundation. You be on Facebook hanging out with Brian Westbrook and Zach Ertz, and you know what I mean. You at the game in the press box. I see you flexing now. You know what I mean. So tell me how this came about and what is all this about, man? You being a baller now. Come on.
No, and again, man, that's definitely a God thing. So it's crazy because we connected with the Ertz Foundation. And it wasn't directly with Zach or Julie. It was just with their foundation. And this was like November of 2019. And they were actually about to move in and do a huge project right around the corner from where we played. and they were trying to get some neighborhood, groups who were doing some stuff down there to kind of partner with them. They brought us into a meeting, and now it's like, hey, we want to partner with you guys. It was great. Fast forward, COVID hits. So their whole project fell apart. And this will come back to the Cuts story. Our church was blessed with the Cuts building. And this kind of rattles some feathers, but I brag on God because of what he does. That building was going to cost us about $500,000 for the building. I turned the building down 4 times. 4 times, turned it down. And then we wrote a letter and just said, look, if you want to give us the building, we'll take it at no cost.
Well,
and they blessed us with the building for $10,000. But in the midst of that, the building was going to cost some money. Fast forward, as we're dealing with the Earth's Foundation, their thing fell through, and we started running a program with them called Beyond the Field. And it was really just getting kids, because at that time, September 2020, no kids were playing. They weren't allowed to play high school football.
Right.
So we ran a program out in the fields with masks, and kids were just playing. So the Earth's family said, hey, can we join, and we want to support you? Sure. After it, his mother, Lisa, who's become a really dear friend and family member at this point, came and said, well, Pastor Rob, what do you do with kids when you're not on the field? I said, in urban settings, we use our churches for everything, whatever you need to do. So they came and saw the Cuts building. We needed to put like over $300,000 into the building. And they said, well, what do you think if we get rid of the project we were going to do and we actually invest in this building? And from that point, they raised over $1 million and investing it.
Look at God.
They said, hey, we believe in your mission. We believe in what you do. And from that point, and we got the partnership, the friendship, and got the Cuts building rebuilt, really to do what it was meant to do. It was, Cuts, when I was there, I was 19 years old amongst all these old pastors. And yet
older pastors.
Older pastors. Yes.
Right.
I fit in that description. I think at that point, just kind of seeing them say, hey, we want to invest in something that we see kingdom building in, and the Earth's family are devoted believers. So we've become friends and family members, and so they've invested in this.
And that building is to be used as?
So the building right now is built to be kind of a one-stop shop. So it's called Grace and Peace Community Fellowship Church, House of Hope. And the idea out of that was, how do we reestablish hope in the community and in a city that's really dealing with a hopelessness spirit? So really, you come in our building, we want every room to be a multi-purposed room. So the sanctuary from Monday through Saturday will be used as a Wi-Fi cafe for the community, because there's no Wi-Fi cafes in our hoods. There's no place for people just to kind of come and crash and just be able to do schoolwork or resume building and different things. In the evenings, Tuesdays and Thursdays, we partner with other partners, Ordinary Heroes, who actually is running mentoring programs that are doing tutoring and leadership development. We're also connected with another biblical grad, Vito.
Come on.
Baldini
is doing small things. So we got a little market in the basement. So we'll be able to hand out groceries and then ready to
I love it.
And then on Sunday, we transform the whole place back to a church. So the whole idea is that, how does someone come in, get all these services? We just love on them throughout the week, really be the church, right? And then say, yo, come on back on Sunday and worship with us.
That's so dope.
I love it.
We just got another partner who you might enjoy.
Who's that?
Tyrese Maxey.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we just started partnering with them a little bit. We're actually going to do some things. And what we're doing with them, and this really goes back to, a lot of classes I took with you, is how do we build this generational legacy piece? We have all these, we have a ton of programs that work with young people,
right?
Whether it's Young Life, FCA, Timoteo, whoever. But the one piece that we're missing is we're not touching the parents or the grandparents. So what we are doing is we're talking with the Tyrese Maxey Foundation and bringing them in to do seniors during the day.
Okay.
And then during the evenings, while their kids are getting kind of tutoring and mentoring, how are we having kind of spaces for them to debrief? How are we giving them resources? Right? Because our youth programs, I only deal with your kid 2 to 3 hours a week. At the end of the day, he or she goes home with you. So how are we pouring into our community and saying, parents, how can we support you and give you the resources so that now that kid gets a 360 view of what the gospel truly can be?
Wow. That is awesome.
That's amazing.
I got to applaud what you're doing.
I know. Like it.
I like the name drop and not the stars, but everybody who went to biblical
gotta give up
seminary. All of my students that I done had speak and do what they do, man. They're so proud of you, so proud of what you're doing. And building folks up and building up the community, building up the next generation. Your heart was always there. And for you to be blessed with those resources, I know it got to be a lot of haters, but man, hats off. I'm glad, God blesses those who willing to bless other people and give away. And you've been doing that ever since you got in the game, man. And we shared the same mentor, Manny Ortiz, as well. Man, to my man. So go ahead, take over. Ask your fun questions.
I know. I'll ask oh my gosh, this was so awesome. Okay, so I know that you played in college. Well, what did you play in college? Was it football, basketball?
Look at him, football.
You played football. Well, what was your position?
Yeah, I went to Kutztown to go. I went and I was offensive guard. I got redshirted.
So he was about 150 pounds heavier.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what he played. I don't know what he looked like in college. Okay, so you are married. Do you cook or does your wife do the cooking?
Oh, my wife kills it. But when I get in, she comes at me if it's wrong. But yeah.
Okay. So your wife is the cooker and you are not. I just want to be clear. Is that what you're telling me?
I can cook, but she.
Look.
But yeah. No.
Well, what is your wife's favorite dish that she makes for you and your family?
Oh man. Like a Cajun pasta Alfredo. Yeah.
Okay. Cajun pasta. Okay. Does it have a protein?
Pasta. Oh, it's chicken.
Okay, like a Rasta pasta. Always chicken. Okay. Just one more question. What's your favorite color?
Oh, blue.
Thank you. Oh, look at that. We were prepared for you. Thank you so much for you. But we're wearing. Always, guys. You guys know how this is with our hosts. But listen, we're going to go ahead and excuse ourselves, Pastor Rob, and we're going to give you an opportunity just to talk to our audience and encourage them for maybe 10 to 15 seconds or 20 seconds and just leave your encouraging word.
Well, yeah, just want to encourage you all tonight just to be encouraged in the midst of a lot of things that we see going on in the city, going on in the world right now. There's a lot of confusion, a lot of division. But one thing that we do know, that we serve a God who is consistent. We serve a God who has a purpose for us and a God who loves us beyond measure. So I pray that tonight and beyond tonight, that your heart would be encouraged that we serve a God of love. And I pray that in the midst of that, you can find your dwelling in him, that you can find your peace in him, you can find your rest in him. Know that we serve a God whose name is Jesus, who gives you a place of refuge every single day of your life.
This has been a really packed episode. I'm so excited that we have this new edition of We Got Next on The Spot is Banging.
So glad we had this time together.
Yeah, I'm glad we had this time. But if you guys want to give so that we can continue to have this time, the Cash App is on the bottom. $ the Athens Avenue. Become a partner. Let's partner together. Come on, let's get this reach a little further. Okay, so Dr. LA?
No, it's on you.
Oh.
He is first, should be last.
All right, guys. So this was a great episode. Episode 3 is now in the books. It has just been amazing being with you guys, seeing all your comments in the chat. So I'm looking forward to next episode. Actually, this next episode it's wild.
It's powerful.
So I'll see you then. It is.
Hey.